The ways on how black could try to fight or avoid the English opening in particular are ultimately two. There's e6 and d5 and c6 and d5. And this is not going to allow essentially white to play the English opening variation. So this is very important for you to remember. Now, what are the ways on how we could fight that? Well, there are different ways, but here is what I recommend. Ultimately, after the moves of c4, knight f6, knight f3, and e6, what we find is that black is ready to go with the move of d5. He's going to play that, and he will do this extremely quick. So what do we do after black plays it this way? After he does it like that, white in the gameplay between Von Valley and Adams played the move of knight to the c3. He was up for the idea of playing e4, or actually prepping himself up for the d4. So there are plenty of great ways on how white can advance. Black can actually play bishop to the b4. Now, let's talk about the d5. d5 is what most people would actually think about doing. But then, in case of a move like d5, white can play e3 or d4, and you can do it, nicely. I mean, bishop to the b4 is what basically black picked up to do in order to have some sort of challenge versus white's knight. It's not a bad move necessarily. It's just a normal candidate. After that, white plays queen to the c2. And actually, after queen c2, short castles, white can do a3. Bishop takes the c3, and then queen takes the c3. The bishop pair advantage, plus the possibilities for center control, are the two major ways and the versions on how white can make this advantage work. And so after queen takes the c3, when black plays mid b6, white can play b4. I would say that the most important way on how white can play this is by getting more space. It's very important to get more space, because getting more space gives us opportunities. And then, after black played with a5, we just play with bishop to the b2. Perfect direction for the pieces. Black does d6, and then white plays with g3. A takes to the b, a takes to the b. See, all these sequences do not work, actually, for black. Why? Because he doesn't have the development necessary to make these type of variations work out for him. He may actually choose to exchange, or he may choose to finish up with his development, yet white is better prepared either way. And that brings a lot. So after the move of rook to a takes to the b, rook takes a1, bishop takes to the a1, c5, and bishop g2. First of all, we have the bishop pair. Second of all, we have the possibility to open up the position at any point. And, we have everything in line, which is actually the most perfect thing in this position. It's a great development, strong position, and a lot of great ways on how white can carry it. So black played the move of pawn up to the e5. He definitely felt like he needed to do this move. But again, it comes very unnatural for black. You see, he's never given those opportunities that white has. So while white is having everything going for him, black has to fight for it. He's not ready. So, after the move of e5, white plays alongside short castle, here, and b5. Black jumped out with the knight on the d4, but then white plays knight x to the d4 and queen b4. There's a nice pressure to be created against the opponent's pawn on d6, and then there's a lot more happening given that most of black's own pieces are so back and down in development. This is excellent. So how do we play against queen c7? I mean, let's say that black is going to hold or try to keep everything protected. What's white's best way to play it? There are different ways, actually, but the better way is ultimately to open the position up. That's what we're looking for. So, all that white actually had to do was just e3. If black plays with a d takes to d, then there's going to be f takes to d or d takes to d, and suddenly most of the white pieces are just going to be opened up, great and ready, and attacking, especially the bishops. That's one of the key values of this position. And yeah, I have to admit, no counterplay is possible in any easy way by black. You can do queen c5, queen takes to the c5, d takes to the c4. I mean, okay, probably white made some more mistakes in the later stage of the game, but the structure was great, and I guarantee you, if you apply a similar formation, you can be very successful with the sequence you follow. Grandmaster Von Wely did it very nicely. Just do not worry that your opponent could deviate from the major order. It's okay. It's not going to do any harm to you. In his next example, it was Vishy Anand with white, who was playing against Michael Adams. That game was played in Linares 1999. And I feel it was a great example on how the setup should work. I mean, white started off with c4, knight c3. He played queen to the b3. And basically after g3, he did a3. So this was good. Again, this is slightly different. You see, like, this position, this approach could be played in multiple different ways. You don't have to worry about playing it just in one way. You can play it a couple different ways. This way, black is fairly limited. He has got a restriction that we've applied, and most of the, or at least the majority of black's own pieces are fairly bad. That is how we're doing it. We are doing it perfect, and we are doing it great. So, what's going on? I mean, in the next move, given the limitations that black has to endure. Well, actually, after that move, then we realize the main problem. It's not just the fact that he's got no way to break in the center or do anything important, but just obviously his bishop has to go back, and there's going to be much more for him to worry. So this is pretty terrible. What's come out of after a3 is that when black's bishop went down to a5, white actually picked up to do bishop g2, castles short, and as soon as white actually castled on the short side idea, with this, there's the move of rook to the d1, and possibly even a move of pawn up to the d4 to be played easily. This is wonderful. After castles, black actually did go ahead with a move of d6, and then white plays e3, e5, d3, and knight to the d2. That gave white a great opportunity to stand up with his own knight and pick it up to a square like the square of d5, and it is wonderful. It's really good. Let's just do it this way and worry about nothing. Again, the flexibility and the pressure are two things that work hand by hand for white. He doesn't care about many tactics. He just wants to make sure that our pieces, in that specific case white's pieces, can take on the best squares, the best positions from where they can pressure, attack, and do anything to challenge black. So that knight on the d5 definitely works out greatly. Okay, well, black has a lot to worry about, that is for certain. So he actually picked up to do, after knight of the d5, knight x to the d5, and then there is the move of, actually c6 to the d5. So that was very important. Black plays knight to the e7. And actually after that, as you could see, there is a more of a problem with the white knight coming up to c4. Just look at every single one of the black pieces. They don't have anything. Not a potential, not a single goal as to where they can go or what they can do. And that is hurtful. This is really a very hurtful position to black, in my opinion. Well, in any case, he actually picked up to do now the move. He had to do it in some way, in one way or another. He had to play the move of knight c4, the b5 move, and then actually after the move of pawn up to the b5, we get the, that knight is perfectly well situated. We have this shot against the a5, against the d6, and then after knight takes to a5, queen takes to a5, e4, bishop to the d7, white can make the move of queen to the d1, and it was great. It was well played, the possibilities are good, and it works out like a charm. So white is now bringing up his own pieces, getting them closer, and setting out for the king's side. This is an interesting outline. In fact, on many occasions, white's idea of bringing over more forces towards down the king's side is underestimated. It is considered as non-lethal, non-dangerous line, which even though it may be good, it's likely going to just help black out. So I do consider that this line is much better. If the queen d1, f5, and then the move like pawn up to the b4, white certainly can open quite a lot of his own pieces. And then after b4, a c6 to the b, and then bishop to the g5. He not only gets the development right, but he's also setting it in the pressure over black. It's just, this is the right way to go for. After the move of bishop to the g5, black plays with the move of knight to the c8. And so actually after knight c8, we can do queen to d2. Pinning down black against the b4 and resourcefully attacking against the b4, resourcefully being able to, win the pawn back. It's all that white cares about, really. It's not just about, oh, look at the pieces, they're nice. I mean, they are nice, that's for sure. But there's a lot more to that, which I think really crosses our attention here. It's a beautiful position, it's a great resource, and, so that's the good idea. Setup's great, activity is wonderful, and our shots against black support it. So this is great. Now, obviously, black can do different things. I feel like his best way to go is probably to plan for f4. So he could, rip apart the position and try to open up some of his pieces. But then after the move of f4, white plays g takes f h6, and in that specific position, white can just play with bishop to the h4. The b4 is failing, and it's not like he doesn't lose the game or anything. But then after e takes f f3, the next move is necessarily just going to be a killer to black, and you can see why that's so useful. After f3, when black actually does queen to the b6 with a check, white's able to do now bishop f2, forcing black, driving him away from the good position, so you can no longer have it there, you can no longer keep it. And then maybe we can do d4, we can do any of those type of moves. Queen d8, a takes to the b, queen to the g5, and after queen to g5, sure thing, we just want to have just a small king h1. This is going to bring out the rook onto the g1, and this is also going to guarantee us moves like bishop d4 and many others that will help in the longer run. About black, well, I certainly do not want to say that he has nothing to do. Surely he does. But it's just that none of his moves are going to make any real difference. That dark square bishop isn't going anywhere. The rooks are not going to anyhow become useful and helpful. And after queen h5, rook to g1, there's also bishop to d4 that white could very easily manage. So it's a disaster. Truth is that after white put up the bishop in there was nothing that black could do that would have helped him out. A really interesting approach to handling this type of formation. Develop, set the pieces up, and then get ready for the attack. The knight on the d5 in the exchange just helped white to consolidate his control over the center, which he was able to further transform into a killer attack. So, I would like to show you this next split between Krasenkov and Romanishин. And this is where black once again picked up to do the move of bishop to the b4, but this time white responded it a little differently. He picked up g4. Now this is, I gotta say that the move of g4 is a move that a lot of people would not like to do, because it just looks weird. Okay, so why would that type of move be ever played? And the reason is because as soon as white plays alongside with the move of pawn up to the g4, then there's like the move of g5, and there's just so much stuff that white could actually consider and do in this type of position. So it's a great, it's a great set of forces to manage the pieces and the development as it goes, as it progresses. Now, is there more to that? Of course, definitely. I mean, after the move g4, one of the things is that black could try h6, or he can do different type of things. Let's see, I mean, if he plays h6 as a candidate, essentially we could continue with the move of rook to the g1. And then we could see the real value of that move being played as we have the shot to make more tactics on that area. g5 is definitely coming up anytime soon. So if black plays b6, white can even deliver the move of h4. Bishop b7, g5, h6 to the g, h6 to the g, knight e4. And I suppose this is the time where white could simply kind of say, alright, let's just pause for a second and continue queen c2. Once again, white naturally controls a lot more space in this position, which provides him with all these, like really interesting sequences. And so after queen to the c2, knight x to the c3, and d6 to the c3, now the bishop's open. We can have that bishop come out to e3 or to the f4. And then, of course, we're going to have the ability to castle short or castle long side. So not only that white has a great set of, wonderful pieces to play upon here, but he also can very quickly deliver or drive forward with them. Just to keep black a little bit on the backside. Bishop d6 can be met by bishop to the e3, and so most certainly black has got a problem with all of this development. Knight c6. Okay, black was ready to, so we can play with the move of long side castles. We can do a move of g6 and everything. And I have to admit that this really looks like a very solid position. This just looks like exactly what we were going to do. We have everything, and we have the the space, the sequence out there, which will be great. Knight d4 is also one of the best moves that white can pick up and do quickly. So this is a wonderful position with a lot of great qualities that white can set up and build upon. Now, of course, in the game, black played short castles and then knight to the e8, but it didn't make much of a difference. If we think about it, seeing how this happened, black picked up to do the move knight to the e8 on his own, and then after that, white plays alongside queen c2, d5, and pawn up to the b3. So that was actually quite good. White's getting ready for the move of, like bishop to the b2. He might also want to think about moves like h4 to h5 or even g6. But the great news is that once the bishop really gets out on the b2 and white is ready to castle on the long side, black has a huge problem. And that is really where it all stands forward. After b3, okay, black plays bishop to e7, rook to the g1. Now, that is an opportunity to do. See, okay, this definitely it does exist, but I think that what is really important is that white probably goes ahead with a move of d4, because not only that this would have guaranteed a wonderful resource to come forward with, but also a chance to keep up the pressure. h4 plus h5 would be great. The idea of advancing with rook to the g1 would work out extremely strong, and that's how we'd like to do it. It's easy, it is simple, and it is efficient all the way. Rook g1 still worked out. I mean, despite it being a little less impressive, so to speak, it still works out. In case black plays with a c5, we're actually able to play with the move of e3. possibly going up with a move of d4 and things like that, which look good. It's great. Then black does go for knight c6, bishop to the d3, and then f5. The flexibility of white structure gives him these extra resources, and that's something we definitely prefer and we love. Now black's got a problem. It's like even when he actually does go ahead with a move like this, he still has plenty to be kind of concerned and worried about. So what really came out of this? Actually, after the move of f5, white plays g takes f, knight takes f, and then a3. And it was great. Now white's setting up for the bishop to the b2. He may be actually going ahead on the king side out there. So maybe we can think about bishop to the b, long side castling and everything. So that looks like it's going to work out perfect. So here, and what's coming up next? I mean, in the end, after a3, black decided to play with queen e8, bishop b2, queen to the h5, bringing over the square, shooting exactly at the square of f3. And what did white actually play in this position? Well, after that, white picked up to play just a small and innocent bishop to e2. You see, we already have the most important necessities for a significant pressure. We got the g7, which is greatly put under attack. We've got the, some other things and bruises, so to speak, against black, and then we have this long side castles, rook g5, all those really wonderful type of activities. d4. Okay, so that's definitely what black wanted to do, but all these things come out of a much worse position. You see, it's hard to feel unprepared as white in this opening. It usually takes a long, many bad moves so that you could really end up underprepared. But for the most part, white is perfect. He's got the space, he has the proper activity, and he's going to make it work as he needs to. Knight takes to the d4, knight takes to the d4, and pawn takes to the d. We're not even taking the black queen at this point. We just keep the pressure and the attack. The g file is amazing. White's definitely going to castle on the very next move. So he is being extremely successful and very, very powerful, very good in this position. Okay, so that's what we're actually going about. No, it's great. It is wonderful to see. Now, what about black? And okay, well, after e takes to the d, queen takes to the h2, long side castle. He captures the d4, and then we play with the move of knight e4, queen f4, bishop to the d3, knight takes d4, bishop takes the e4, h6, and then bishop takes d4. So what we have right here is like 3 to 4 pieces, each and every one of them, really involved with the attack. And it's kind of amazing because it really starts with a strange looking at first sight move of g4, but it simply brings a lot of quality to the way how white has already made his own development in the position, and it's just wonderful like this. It's good, it's sufficient, and it's ready. So that's the whole thing about what the line can bring you, and that's one of the reasons why I think it's so very good. It's easier, simple, and it requires very little to no complications, as it's going. So yeah, okay. These are just a few little principles to remember. Now, again, remember that this opening usually takes a little bit to play it, but I think it's a great way to go for. So bishop f6, bishop to the e3, queen to the d6, and then we have c5. It drives him away. It helps us to get ready and kick out that g7 pawn, and it's just every single advanced piece out there against black is helping us to attack him. This is terrific. Black has little to nothing that he can do, and yeah, very much of a good approach.